You're listening to Biz-Souls, the business podcast with an edge, hosted by me, Rona and Jeffrey Hansler. Tune in for perspectives and discoveries about the changing world of business. It's time to connect to the heart, soul, and humor of how business gets done. Hi, Jeffrey.
Hi, Rona.
And welcome to everyone out there. This is the Biz-Souls podcast, where we get to the heart and soul of business and the people who make it happen.
I'm very excited about this session, Rona.
Oh, yeah, gee, me too. Because today we are talking about critical thinking, one of my wheelhouses. And I'm lying. I'm not very good at it. This is, true confessions here. Critical thinking, my thought process is, well, that's just being all judgy. And sometimes it can be, but it isn't, is it, Jeffrey?
No, it's not about judgment, Rona. And you know what? You're being hard on yourself. You do use critical thinking occasionally.
Just when you whack me on the side of the head and say, come on, Rona, you're smarter than that. And then I have to, yes, you're right. So yeah, I am. And there's a lot that goes into it, and you are better at it than I am. I mean, you are teaching me how to think better and with a little more logic and things like that.
Boy, that's not saying much.
I know. Logic is the magic word. And yeah.
So tell us, we're going to talk about critical thinking, and is it a lost art?
Well, and my question is, were people ever really good at it?
Yeah, people have always been good at critical thinking, certain individuals. I think what's going on now, though, is that with social media, we have a platform for people that may not have spent a lot of time working on critical thinking.
Well, thank God for social media, because otherwise we wouldn't even be talking.
Exactly. So social media has,
it does have its benefits. But
I think it does have its benefits. And our purpose today is to, talk about this subject so that hopefully the discussion increases a little bit, and maybe people demonstrate some more critical thinking skills. I keep banging
I bang on that a little more because you're enjoying it out there, aren't you? Yeah. Just hit it more.
All right.
Let's kind of start at the beginning. What is critical thinking? Because isn't it kind of a fairly new term?
No, it's been around in management for quite a while. And
like it wasn't around the 1800s sort of thing.
No, they probably didn't call it that. And, that's a great question. I have no idea what they used to call it, whether they thought they were smarter. What did Leonardo da Vinci said? I don't even know. I don't read Italian. So I couldn't tell you if it's in his notes.
But he does enjoy a good bowl of spaghetti every so often. So
yeah, Isaac. He wrote? No, the guy who wrote the book on Leonardo da Vinci. He did a biography on him. Anyway, he's really good. Isaac Watson, maybe.
I'll take your word.
Anyway,
okay.
So, and he may have mentioned critical thinking in there, although I don't know if it was attributed to him. So who knows? And we digress because
that's what we do.
It isn't history that we're interested in. We're talking about how to utilize these skills for now and how to bring them into work for your own personal and their business benefit.
Speaking of benefits, there are a lot of them.
There are. So what's the official definition of critical thinking?
The definition, and obviously I have to read this, the objective analysis and evaluation of an issue in order to form a judgment. See? It is judgy.
It's a different kind of judgment. It's about making a decision as opposed to just a judgment.
My God, you're really wearing those shoes with that shirt, right? Which is my usual form of judgment. And which there is logic in it because, the colors have to match and it has to be, stylish.
Well, when you start
I'm a New Yorker and that's what we do. We're a stylish crew. Anyway, I digress once again. Go ahead.
Yes,
Sorry.
yes.
So,
speaking of style, I love your scarf today.
Thank you, isn't it? It's fun. Okay. So, yes. So basically you have to be objective. You have to take a step back and evaluate and analyze and all that kind of stuff because that's, me, that's what I'm really good at. Just
Yeah, think of it like a pause. Instead of just saying what comes onto your mind or making a snap decision or just speaking what comes off the top of your head or making a decision without really spending any time considering pros, cons, consequences, things like that, you actually spend time on it. You give it some weight.
Yeah, patience is not my forte.
Not mine
does, yeah.
either. And so even people that try, like you were very sweet and you said that I do critical thinking.
You do.
And there are times that, I'm reactive, and we'll talk about the biology of that later on and why it's so hard. For right now, though, why don't we cover some of the benefits?
Let's do that. We actually started and then how surprising, we digressed. Okay, so let's talk personal first.
So on the personal side, one of the things I think critical thinking does, it really helps it can help your self-image.
Tell us how, Jeffrey.
Well, first of all, is self-esteem. It's kind of like being good at anything. Like if you can figure out a crossword puzzle, if you can you can do tic-tac-toe, you can do an activity. I think if you can work yourself through a complex problem, an issue, and come out with a decision that gets you the results you want, that really improves your self-esteem.
Well, and I'm actually thinking I have more critical thinking skills than I think, because as an athlete playing a lot of sports, you had to take a step back for figuring out what to do and strategy and things like that. So isn't that critical thinking?
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at me, I'm better than I thought.
There you go.
I'm so excited. Okay, and so what else?
Better relationships. So in relationships, everyone has weaknesses and strengths. And somebody with critical thinking skills can help analyze the situation, or if you have a difficulty, an emotional conflict, or maybe just deciding how to solve a problem between the two of you, or get something that you both desire, something that you'd like. Figuring out the steps, the process you can go through, analyzing what's going on, the facts, the figures, and then making decisions.
And that does take practice, I think, in a lot of relationships. I think if people in relationships were that good, therapists would go out of business.
Well, yeah, and that's
because
kind of
emotion comes in, right?
Well, and that's the role that therapists play, is besides just listening to you. And gosh, we don't pay them enough for that.
That's right.
I'm sorry, I completely lost my thought.
We were talking about relationships. I scared him with the therapy thing.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I started going into my childhood and all kinds of things.
We don't have time for all that.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of critical thinking in that at this point. But yeah, so it's basically taking emotion out of it, and that's hard when you're dealing with a relationship. It's like when if a couple is going to do a prenup, that's taking emotion out of it, isn't it?
Well, that's an interesting point, Rona. And we're talking about words, and human beings can never take emotion. Emotion is always part of our decisions at some level. And so you don't take it out of it. What you're doing is balancing that emotion by making a decision that hopefully will serve everyone better.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, so what about things, if you're analyzing what to do and either stop, what to invest in, or, even just plain problem solving. What else? Yeah, you need critical skills. Complete a sentence, Rona. You need critical skills for that too, which is, I'm trying to sound smart and I'm not working. It's not working. Forget it. I'll leave that to you.
She was actually reading my mind because I'm thinking, is there a sentence in here somewhere?
That's, let's go back to that logic thing.
So you've got self-esteem, it can improve your relationship. Just from an analytical skill, it can help you reduce the number of mistakes you make better decisions, maybe allow you to undertake new complex tasks, things like that. Maybe understanding power, control, the power dynamics that are going on. And
that actually sounds a lot like business.
Well, yeah. It's business. It's also protection. I mean, critical thinking skills can come into your safety. Like, okay, let me see. Walking down a dark alley in New York, in the middle of the night, and wondering, like, is this a smart thing to do?
There are no dark alleys in New York because everyone's up until 4 a.m. anyways.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I'm just an outsider.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, New York has changed a lot in the pandemic. I haven't been back there in a few years, so there's no telling. And I still love it.
Yeah, and then finally you can take these skills and then translate them directly into work, take them into work and use it. And that's the thing. These things don't come easy. You have to practice, and it's a conscious practice. And again, that's what we're promoting constantly. If you want to get better at something, you practice it.
Of course.
That's how athletes get better, and that's how business people get better. It doesn't magically come. You might have been in an environment of them.
Well, and I think that now more than ever, critical thinking skills are key to being able to flow with the just changing workplace overall, hybrid work from home. And there's a lot of benefits, there's a lot of detriments, and so I think those skills come in handy with being able to keep things productive.
Which is one of the reasons we're talking about it, because the world is changing. And now that we're not following just rote patterns, we're actually have to come up with new solutions, new ways of doing things, new ways of looking things. And that's just going to increase more and more as time goes on, I believe.
So, we're talking about all of these things that it is so necessary. And I think more so now than ever, with everyone being so divisive on so many levels. Why don't people work on it more?
Well, first of all, it's hard. It's really, really difficult.
This is very true.
It's really difficult. You can take these skills, from personal, and then apply them to work and carry them over to work, and they can help you be more successful as a manager, better at your emotional intelligence skills, be a better supervisor, be a better leader in general. And, work is complex.
Well, yeah, especially now with the hybrids and the work from home. I would think you'd need more critical thinking skills to keep productive and understand what's needed for your employees. What's best for them.
Absolutely, and no longer we can't do things the same. There's so many things changing because of technology and because of people's desires and what we want from society, that the more people that bring these critical thinking skills into work, the better the workplace is going to be, and the faster we're going to come up with the solutions that really make a distinction between what was and what can be. And then also, at work, people play politics. There are a lot of people that want to influence or persuade you, and you need critical thinkings to be able to work through their arguments to come up with a better solution, so that you're not swayed or taken down some path that somebody wants you to take.
Which is, we were both in sales, and that's part of it, and I was in advertising, so that whole business is about persuading people.
Yes, and from my perspective, I hope it was yours. I'm sure it was yours as well. Is we want our customers to have critical thinking skills as well, so that they're making a decision they feel comfortable with. And so I always really liked working with those customers that were engaged and could think things through and follow a conversation, and then really analyze and communicate what was important to them, so they'd end up with the right solution.
Yeah. Well, those are, there are a lot of outside influences, aren't there?
Yeah. And so those are some of the benefits that you get from it.
Yeah.
And then what would be point number 2?
Well, with everything, kind of wacky in the world today, why don't people work on it more?
Well, the first thing is it's difficult. Critical thinking skills involves a lot of your own personal skills. Besides that, you have to know a little bit about logic, and you also have to know about neuropsychology, and you also have to be aware of yourself. You have to have that self-knowledge of yourself. So it's difficult. And the other reason it's difficult is businesses for centuries have not asked people, businesses or environments or countries or kings and queens and all, they haven't asked people to use critical thinking skills. They really wanted to dumb things down and here, go do what I say. Don't think about it. Just do what I say. Trust me.
Well, that's, that was the feudal system, and now we actually are not that far, because that's what politicians ask us to do every day. Trust me.
Yeah, exactly. And that is
and look how well
thing.
That's working.
Yeah,
now. Yeah. No matter what side you're on, it's just overall not so great.
Yeah. Maybe we should do a class for Congress or something like that.
Critical thinking for congressmen.
Yeah, there you go.
Starting next week, we'll be here for 3 years.
What is a representative? Okay, never mind. Okay.
So yeah.
We digress. The other thing is nature.
Yeah.
We're not hardwired for critical thinking. Everything comes up. All your sensors come up through the amygdala, and the amygdala only knows three things: fight, flight, or freeze. That's it. And to think about it, no, it wants an immediate reaction, and it doesn't understand, as they say, the saber-toothed tiger from the person yelling at you. In the office, it's a fear. Both of those things generate a fear response, and you have a choice: run, fight, or freeze.
Or in my case, go in the freezer and get some ice cream, because that helps with stress and fear. Cowering in the corner with the pint.
Do you have a lot of different pints in your freezer?
No.
Just
I don't.
one.
I don't eat a lot of ice cream, but I always have one.
You have one.
And I always have something in there that, it's usually like a coffee ice cream base, because that's my favorite flavor. For anyone who may be dropping by, coffee ice cream is my favorite.
Maybe we should put 5 in there and then develop a system where you work on critical thinking. Which one tonight?
Which one is worse? Which one doesn't have any caffeine, so I'll be up all night in my fear-based freeze. All right. Seriously.
Besides our own nature, there's groupthink. People want to get along. Hard. They want to be social. They want to. It's hard to be the outlier.
The rebel.
The rebel.
We actually did a podcast on being an outlier, and those special outliers are kind of few and far between.
And we know groupthink gets people into trouble. That's how when if you don't have, you're not looking at things. That's how companies make bad mistakes.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, that's how conspiracy theories and the people who permeate them, is that the right word, permeate them, grow. Because everybody is, especially if they're not sure, it's like, these guys kind of get it. I'm going to hang with them.
Yeah.
And then, you don't listen to anybody else, which is why it's so hard to convince people.
Absolutely.
Otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. And the more people that join your conspiracy, the more you actually end up believing it. Like, hey, this is really going good.
Have some Kool-Aid.
Welcome to Heaven's Gate.
Right. Let's all wear white.
Hey, why don't we go down to Central America? That'll be fun.
Because the UFO is going to come get us.
Yes, exactly.
But we're not judging.
No, not at all. Absolutely not at all. And you know what? It's okay, because we only have a 5-year life expectancy.
That's right. There is I was telling Jeffrey this. I have a former friend of mine who is a conspiracy theorist, and I don't want to say he or she or it's gender fluid now, so it doesn't. So they were telling me that because I chose to get vaccinated, that I only have 5 years to live. So why bother dating or anything like that? Because I'm going to be dead in 5 years. Well, if I'm going to be dead, I'm going to drive the bus to hell and have a really good time right now. I mean, really, because obviously Bill Gates is listening to me now. He knows my every move because I got the vaccine and they implanted that little nanobot or whatever the heck.
Well, he is.
I mean, it goes on.
He is single again, maybe,
Hey,
Rona,
Bill,
you're quite the catch. Besides, I like Mr. Gates. He's very, very good.
He is. And I do have a question, and it deals with conspiracy theories and all that. Who is they?
Oh, you mean when they
say, where are they getting their information from? That's where critical thinking comes in, because no one looks it up. No one takes a step back.
Right. And actually, we'll talk about that. Why people, I can't remember it right now. I'm drawing a blank. Trying to follow the outline. I can't even think of the thing we're going to talk about later on.
But we will find out. We will talk about it. That's why we have notes. So we'll figure it out as we get there. We are going to talk about they very soon. So, okay. And
then the last one is social media. That's the last thing on it. And it's not that social media is bad, and it's that what you get better at what you practice. And people are not practicing critical thinking on social media.
Oh, not at all.
So what they're doing is practicing bad behavior.
Yeah. Well, and that's why we have so many issues with Facebook and what else was there? Instagram or TikTok or one of them. Yeah, that they're just allowing all this stuff that is untrue. And it's like, well, at least check your facts.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was just thinking, I still can't get used to the name Facebook changed to Meta.
To Meta.
Yeah.
It doesn't change what they're doing or who they are. It's like, not one person on the United States, unless you're, in the Amazon forest and, are still lighting fires with flint. Everyone's heard of Facebook, and the name change isn't gonna do anything.
And it doesn't matter to me anymore.
Oh, but I'm bunch. We'll be here till Thursday. Try the veal. Great. All right. So okay. So
now wait.
What?
One more thing.
Yes.
One more thing. So those are things that aren't helping critical thinking. So the last thing though is there are people that do practice critical thinking, and unfortunately, and this is for everybody, when a crisis hits, because of the time pressure, the stress, the panic. Again, the amygdala, you
Fight
get
or
that
flight.
amygdala hijack.
Yeah.
If you haven't practiced critical thinking skills,
You're going for the ice cream.
right, exactly. Well said. Well said.
I have no problem with that. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So what do we do with this? We've talked about critical thinking, talked about some of the, why it's hard.
Yeah.
What's next?
Well, so we have to figure out solutions.
We should figure out solutions. So,
don't you think?
As always, we have some solutions for you.
We have recommendations and solutions. It's never black or white, although I happen to look very good in black and white.
Yes.
That's it, because I'm a winter. But so we have to create models. And Jeffrey is actually quite good at that because he has linear thinking and strategies while I tend to do the circular. I will get to my point eventually, but I have two older brothers, Mark and Todd, and they can't sue me because we're related. And yeah, they used to, it's like, Rona, when are you getting to the point? I do have a point. Just wait a half an hour and I'll finish my stories and I will get there. And I usually do. Just like now, that took me 10 minutes to create a model. So Jeffrey, talk to us about creating a model.
Look, I like systems and models for
Yes.
everything.
Yes, he does.
And I play around with them all the time. And with critical thinking, there are a lot of different elements to it. I haven't seen anyone that says, step 1, do this, step 2, do this, step 3, do this. So I just kind of play around with models and try and come up with something that I can remember. So we have and let me see, it's the Gia Ifa Faptu model.
And what is that? Was that Sanskrit? What? Try saying that 5 times fast.
One of these days it'll get turned into an acronym. So anyway,
because it's not very good right now. Yeah.
No, it's actually terrible on that. So the GEA, that's first, Gia.
No, it's JEA.
J, right, like my name.
And we'll work on spelling in our next podcast. Okay, JEA. Go ahead.
It's 4:00. We're done with work, aren't we? So, okay. So,
I'm not going to say JEA. Go ahead. JG.
Judgment and emotional attachment. That's the first thing. And this is my model. This just works for me.
This is Jeffrey's model, and he spells it with a J, not a G. Just so you know.
I was talking to a bunch of Ukrainians yesterday, and they kept saying Jeffrey with a G. So anyway.
Get it? Jeffrey.
Anyway.
Okay.
So judgment. So the first thing that happens for me is, and this happens for a lot of people when they get into a meeting, most, and as a matter of fact, the majority, there's some statistic, I'm sure, and it's probably made up. Anyway, the first one is judgment. Most people go into a meeting and they decide, okay, they hear an idea and they go, I agree or I disagree. And the minute you get into that kind of judgment, you're heading the path away from critical thinking.
Well, because it's very black and white.
Yeah, it's not about analyzing. It's not about discussing it. It's like, okay, I want to make quick decision and move on. And God, I belonged to this board with these people on the board, and that's what they did. And for 15 years, they've been making that quick, I agree or I disagree. And then once they decide that, then they just continue to bad logic to figure out, and we'll talk about logic. Bad logic just to prove their point.
I'll just listen because it's about logic. I'm kidding. I am kidding. Sort of.
So after I realized that, then I start questioning, do I have an emotional attachment to this? And it could be, am I trying to be the smartest person in the room, which rarely happens. Does it mean something to me? Am I afraid of losing power, control? Am I afraid of being in a negative, or not showing myself in a good light? Mm. So the minute I start questioning elements like that gets me back onto the path of critical thinking, which is you have to be a little distant from and look at things, Spock-like, Spock, a little emotional, logical that way, and that's the way I started.
And I come from the other direction. I get an emotional reaction first, and then I have to take a step back, and say, why? What emotion am I feeling, and why? And I have to get that out of the way before I make a judgment, because I tend to react. I put emotions first, and that's just mine. You
Right.
just said this is yours, so I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. Okay. go
Well,
ahead.
you can use this. It's not like copywritten or anything. Yeah.
Can I spell it differently? Do I
Yeah.
have to
Oh
use
God,
a G
no!
or
Please,
a J?
really, it's not helping. And then if this is gonna
If
be
I
like,
had a hammer, I'd be doing this solo. Bam. Okay. Sorry.
that was very good.
Thank you.
That was good. So, what are the issues? What are the fears and the assumptions of? No. What are the no? God, man, I wish I've got to have my.
Issues.
I haven't taught
We
this.
all have issues. We all have issues.
What is the issue at hand?
At hand,
What is
right,
the
right.
issue at hand? And then what are the facts? And then what are the assumptions?
And we all know about assumptions.
Yeah,
They make an ass of you and me. You know where I learned that?
Where did you learn?
I learned that
Rona?
from The Odd Couple.
Really?
TV is good. Yeah.
Oh, the TV?
The original.
Movie?
Well, not the movie. It was an episode with Jack Klugman and Tony Randall.
Tony Randall.
And I was
series.
I was almost in the womb when that was. I was very young, but I remember that. You make an ass of you and me.
Oh, that's good.
And that is very true when we assume, because there's nothing behind it.
That's right up there with KISS. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
All right.
Stupid.
Yes,
Silly.
yes. And then what's the next one? What's the next one there? What have I got?
FAP.
FAPA. So FAPA is, where did I put that?
Fears affecting people. Love you.
Thanks.
Let me share
That's
that
good.
with you. Yeah.
So what are the fears affecting people? Because, the idea of critical thinking is not for you just making, in business, is not making decisions on their own. It's making decisions with others. And you want other people to have critical thinking skills. And if they've got fears and...
So basically, what you're doing is having empathy while you're taking a step back and having
Right.
critical thinking.
Right.
I figured that out all by myself.
It's very, very good.
Thank you very much. Hold on.
Explain that.
Okay.
And then the last one?
And you have one more.
Yeah.
What is it?
The two. Two.
What two?
What is two? Why don't you tell me? Because you've got this down better than I
Evidently.
do now.
Well, I thought it was T and O.
It is
Which
T&O.
I actually thought it was T and A.
Yeah, what
because
is your target?
Because it is Jeffrey. T and A.
T-
Because you like tits and ass.
Can we even talk about
There's-
that?
What, tits and ass?
Yeah, this is workplace. Is that?
You and I work together, so does it bother you? Are you going to sue me? I just know you. You appreciate the female form, and he is incredibly respectful in the business world. There's never been any problems. Let me say that right up. This was just a joke. Please don't send in emails, cards, and letters and stuff like that. This is not a Me Too moment. It was just a joke. All right, let's just circle back like that circular logic thing and go to targets and options. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Targets and options.
Forget
That's
I said
all
anything.
it is.
I'm just having a whole
you.
myself.
Okay, Rona just got off on a plane 24 hours ago.
I was
She
in
was working
Phoenix.
very hard.
I was on
and
customer service.
Yes, she was doing a great job. And
So you've heard.
Yeah.
I did. My feedback was excellent.
And then she came down here to do this, which is really nice. So thank you in person. Instead of doing it we haven't done one, across Zoom.
We just enjoy each other's
Zoomy
company so much
Exactly.
that we just,
So, and let me see.
Okay, so the targets and options.
Yeah.
Did you explain that?
Didn't I? Yeah, you've got to have a clear target. You got to know so besides knowing the issue, you want to target. And then what are your options? Yeah. So what can you do here? What can you do to mitigate it and mitigate your risks? What you can do if plan A doesn't work, what have you got for plan B? So that's all part of your critical thinking. And It's an ongoing process where you are, and then you need to kind of track this stuff and then check it. And so as you can tell, I don't have the model memorized. What I do is if I've got a difficult thing, I just pull out this little piece of paper I made, and then I start thinking and working through this process.
Yeah. Well, and that makes a lot of sense, because when you're using more than one sense, when you're writing it down, you can see it and assess it better than just thinking, because sometimes you can forget what else goes into it. The different points, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about getting yourself out of the way, because for me, I can get my ego comes in, I'm a little fragile, And, sometimes I have to remember not to prove that I'm the smartest person in the room and get myself out of the way, because sometimes I know it's hard to believe, but sometimes it's not about me, Jeffrey.
Really? I've never noticed that.
I know. I'm so upset. Anyway, so yeah,
So-
so yeah, getting yourself out of the way is a big thing.
Yeah, and this is a great time to bring up your personal assessment of your own skill level. And besides getting out of your own way, you also, it's your communication skills, which ours are just raging.
Can you tell?
Where personal communication skills, how you also your ability to read people or read their personalities, understand their decision-making values, micro-expressions, all the skills we use in terms of communication to try and help that communication. Work on your active listening skills, which,
that is probably one of the hardest things for people to do. And I've, yesterday, even though I was talking about customer service, active listening is huge, because customer service is all about communication. And if you're not listening to them and being in the present moment, forget it. You won't be able to figure anything out.
Right.
So
who's the main male star on Ozark?
Jason Bateman.
Jason Bateman. Right. So I was watching a clip of that the other day, and what he does in that movie, he demonstrates so well, is really active listening.
Yeah.
He waits till somebody speaks. He's always trying to calm things down, and he's really, you could tell he's listening. And he also does this kind of like legal thing where he only answers the question they ask.
Yeah.
He doesn't supply a lot of information really most of the time when he's on. And then he has a meltdown every once in a while, I guess, in the show.
That's true. I want to bring it back to one thing that you were talking about, considering alternatives, and being able to see what else is available. And that really feeds into one of my bailiwicks, which is creative thinking. We always say, consider what if. And that's used when you want to be innovative or creative and come up with new ways of doing things. So in that sense, critical thinking always comes in.
Well, and that comes in. It's a perfect alternative to when you start considering things and the assumptions that are behind them.
Uh-huh.
So that's part of what you need to really. That's another area to really work on, is start learning how you go about making assumptions and how much you assume. I don't think people are aware of exactly how much they assume about things. Somebody tells you, yeah, it's 5 o'clock. For most of us, we just accept that.
Well, you just told me it was 4 o'clock, so I'm taking your word for it.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And the reason we do that is we don't have time to analyze everything and really cut into anything.
So wait, so now we're supposed to question everything? I'm
No,
supposed to go
no.
along and say, wait a minute, why is the sky blue? Which basically you're bringing out your inner child. Excellent. Because I'm very good at my inner child coming out. So, and that's, you can't question every single thing.
Well, in a philosophy class, that'd be great. In business, no, you can't.
Right.
There's no time for it. So there's this balance between them. And again, when you're at work, we're under so much pressure to do these things that one of the best times to work on your, being aware of your assumptions that you make is that in your personal life and what's going on. Somebody says it's fresh lobster. Okay, well, how fresh is it? Is it like fresh today, or is it fresh like it arrived last week and it's been sitting in a bucket?
And if you have, did you know that if this is another thing to think about? If you get a seafood stew, it's usually the fish that has been around for a little while, and they can't just serve it.
No, it's because it's gotten that.
Yeah,
That
it's a little gamey.
It's a little gamey.
Which may be an oxymoron. Can fish be gamey?
No.
Okay.
It's fishy.
Yeah,
becomes
that's
fishy.
right. It becomes fishy. Anyway, all right. So
So we've got we need a model. You got to
Yeah.
work on your personal skills,
Right.
and then the last thing is and then one of those personal skills especially is dealing with your assumptions and knowing where you're constantly making assumptions.
Right.
And then the last thing would be just get into logic itself, which is a whole study. And
goody.
yeah,
Because I'm so good at linear logic. Yes. Okay. Sorry. So yes, and one thing I can do is deductive reasoning. I can consider, if I really pay attention, I can consider the data and draw a conclusion from that. If it's presented to me, I'm really good at that.
Yeah, you're very, very good at it. And you're also good at deductive. What's the other one?
I'm inductive.
Inductive reasoning, which is you look at the conclusion and see, do the facts line up and lead to that?
That's what forensics do, right?
Yeah, they kind of look, here's the dead body. Okay, the gun's 30 feet away. It's in another room.
Where's Dexter when you need him?
Yeah, exactly. Could we rule this a homicide? Probably not.
Yeah.
So, and we also know that from neuropsychology that your brain's not your friend.
That is very true.
We also have to be aware of how we are impacted by biases, and also how people present things, word patterns that they present things. Why don't we cover biases first?
Well, there's a belief bias, which is just going from your own experience. If I have a bad experience going on vacation to a certain place, then that's what I'm gonna talk about. Or if I buy a car and it's a lemon, I'm gonna and this is true story. Years ago, I leased a BMW, and it was horrible. I had a BMW X3, and it rode heavy. It hesitated. It was terrible. It was like a 2007, 2008, something like that. And they said, oh well, they had farmed it out in those years. So after that, I always thought BMWs are horrible cars.
Right.
From my experience, they happen to be great cars. I just didn't believe it because my experience was terrible.
Right. I don't even want to go where I was going on that whole thing. German cars and anyway.
And what, being Jewish?
Just, that's, should we think about that?
No, because we could, I don't want to get to you.
Yeah, okay.
So,
okay.
All right, so let's.
Well, and like me, like New York is just crime ridden. I mean, I arrive in New York and I realize my luggage is gone.
Well, what happened? Did it get stolen?
No, I forgot it at home.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's talk about other kinds of thinking skills.
So there's confirmation bias.
Yes, confirmation bias is a big one.
And that's where you just look for the facts that support your thing.
Right, and that can go back to the conspiracy theories too.
Oh yeah, exactly. 5 years from now, I guarantee somebody who's had a vaccination
is going to die, right?
And that is going to jump confirmation. We are all going to die. It's just a matter of count back. Right. So it's, it's...
I get it. Okay. I get it. And then there's something that I just learned about, which is anchoring. And that's measuring future information against your first exposure to it. So it's like, this is what I know, and then I have to compare it to what else I learn, right?
Right. So you don't date jazz musicians now because of...
Never, because I'm a better athlete than they are, and I have other things to talk about. And yeah, let's not go there. Yeah. Too late, but we're not naming names. Anyway.
No. And then there's atmospheric...
But he should live and be well. Go have fun, have a nice life. All right.
And then, of course, there's the atmospheric effect.
Which is what?
Well, that's where you use words that kind of predispose people down a certain path of thinking, like, crime-ridden New York, already crime-ridden New York, would you feel safe there?
So it's basically adjectives.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
An adjective-filled description,
yeah,
which convinces somebody whether or not it's true or not.
Right. So let's talk about patterns. And we'll bring this kind of down to a close because we've been going a while.
Yeah, and I happen to enjoy zigzags.
Good.
And paisley is always nice.
Oh, very good, very good. Good.
Not those kind of patterns.
Yeah. So
my mom was an interior designer. It's just what came up. All right. So go ahead.
Like ad hominem.
What?
Do you know what that is?
No.
Well, it's Latin for one thing.
Is it? Okay. As opposed to ad infinitum, which seems to be what we're doing. Okay.
Yeah, and that's using personal attacks to argue. So somebody says to you, I wish you would be on time more. Yeah, well, you're
always late too, or something.
No. That's not ad hominem. That's tu quique.
Quique. Isn't that like Indian from what's the novel with the Hawkeye that I can't think of?
Yeah, and I may be pronouncing it slightly wrong.
Okay.
My Latin is I'm not great with languages.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, that is where you reduce somebody's judgment on you by saying they're guilty of it too.
Oh, okay. So what's ad hominem?
That's using a personal attack to argue. So somebody says, we'd like you to be here on time more, and then you turn around and say, well, you have fat feet.
Oh, say, well, you smell funny. And,
yeah, exactly.
Okay, because that's my kind of logic.
Right,
yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Right. And then your very favorite.
Circular reasoning. I get there.
Yeah, exactly. And then you come right back around.
Yeah.
I
see no problem with that.
And then
because the circle is perfect.
That's right.
Just say it.
False dichotomy. That's where you give them a binary choice and apply that's the only two choices. Do you want the red car or the white car?
That's a sales technique.
Well, yeah, and people use it effectively. You need to know, it could also be no car because I don't need to go between the two.
Yeah. And then it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
We don't want to go there. We don't want to go there.
No.
All right, what else?
Ad hoc reasoning.
More Latin.
Yes, I know. Prove a point with irrelevant and false data.
Evidently, Latin. Who spoke Latin? The
Greeks.
The Greeks. Yeah, they were all very good at critical thinking. Evidently,
the Greeks spoke Latin.
The Greeks spoke Latin. Yeah, I just got that.
And then there's the bandwagon, which we talked about in the beginning of this. Everybody's doing it.
The groupthink.
Hey, the groupthink. Everybody's doing it. That's bandwagon.
And that's what? That's how fashion survives.
Because exactly.
The bandwagon.
Exactly.
Because whether you look good in it or not, and much of the time, most of us don't, and we wear it anyway.
Right. Yeah. And red herring, which is you're trying to get somebody.
It's pickled. It's fabulous. So, no, that's not it.
No, just distractions from the real issue. And so here's the thing.
Like pickled herring. Sorry.
Those are things people use in arguments without even being aware of what they're doing to avoid critical thinking.
So can you give me an example of that?
Well, sure. It's like, okay, for example, this one organization, look, we should share the financials with a membership. Mm-hmm. So it's a nonprofit company that owns a for-profit, and they've never shared the financials with the membership of the for-profit internally. And they said, well, it's got to be, it'll release all our competitors will find about it and we'll lose market share. Well, this group has not grown, whereas all their competitors have grown immensely out of it. It's a false logic. And you ask them to do it. No, we can't do it because it'll do this. And they just, no, if we release this, then they'll start bugging you. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm banging the furniture.
He's getting excited about this.
If we release this information, then the members will start all asking us questions and we won't be able to get anything done.
So basically, it's
they just keep running through all of them. Yeah, and they false dichotomies, red herrings, the slippery slope.
Okay, so all right, so
and when those didn't work, it's personal attacks. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about.
Then we go back to all those others, all the other Latin expressions that the Greeks used. So all right, so
let's bring this to a close. What do you think?
Well, I think
I interrupted you. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. I just was going to say, for a lot of us, thinking logically, we kind of suck at it.
Yeah, well, and it's very difficult. This is not easy. It doesn't come easy.
It's an unnatural thing.
It is. It's very unnatural for us to stop this because your amygdala and you want to operate quickly and efficiently, and to stop and think about and give pause for things is something that we just don't take time to do.
Yeah.
And yet we should.
Yes. And we have a little sentence that I think sums it up.
Well, okay.
Yeah. Logic is the unnatural act of knowing which facts you're putting together to reach your conclusion.
That's very, very good. I like that.
You may quote me.
Very good.
So Jeffrey
yes.
with a J.
Or a G, depending on who I'm talking
to. Or Jeffrey. That would be Jeffrey.
Look.
What's your final point?
Final point is critical thinkings are important. They're going to be even more important as we go forward. More and more people, and as partly because of the internet, you have information available, and we have more decisions than ever. And to be able to make good decisions that support us, support our goals, support our dreams, support our family, and so developing critical thinking skills is great. And I think one of the simplest ways to develop critical thinking skills is to engage and get in conversations with a diverse variety of people with a diverse set of opinions, and engage and talk with them. And during that, practice your listening skills, practice your critical thinking skills, ask questions instead of just making assumptions and going with what they're saying, and be engaged with them. And that is a great, wonderful, enjoyable way to develop critical thinking skills from that social interaction standpoint, and then do your research and study on logic and your ability to ask questions and check your assumptions, and then also work on yourself so you understand who you are.
Right. And don't forget, when you're networking and talking to people, you have to stay 6 feet apart. Just saying. Just saying. Unless you're listening to this in 2025, in which case, do whatever you want.
Yeah, we actually, this is an optical illusion here. We're using a lot of CGI.
Yeah, we're not this close. Yeah.
We're actually 20 feet apart. No.
Yeah. So my final point, I'm bringing this, mine is a little more personal. You know, I'm actually out of practice from a lot of critical thinking skills because I was in corporate. You know, I worked my way up the ladder. I had to have a certain amount of critical thinking skills to do my job, and I'm a little out of it. You know, as an entrepreneur, and we do things together, I depend on him a lot. But there's you know, it's hard for me to really get back into the practice of it, and I'm doing it, and I'm much more self-aware to be non-reactive. And to take a step back and say, don't get emotional about this. Although, you know, everything's personal in some, you know, this is just business. No, not always. You even said this, everything's personal. You know, we had that talk. So yeah, so I'm working on it, and I think it's going to be something that I have to do lifelong because of my emotional personality.
Very, very good.
Yeah, that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Absolutely.
All right. So that's our podcast for today. I'm Rona Lewis.
I'm Jeffrey Hansler.
Thanks for playing. We'll see you later.
See you later.
You've been listening to the Biz-Souls podcast with your hosts, Rona Lewis and Jeffrey Hansler. Did you have fun? Subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Talk to you next week.